afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Lehocky Eagles postgame show live at Ocean Casino. And there's so much to unpack in this game. I'm Mike Missanelli with Derrick, Gunn, Seth, Joyner, Devan, Kaney will join us later. So the big question coming in was how would they respond, the Eagles, after the aura of invincibility was kind of taking a shot last week with the loss? And the answer was they didn't respond very well until late in the game when they needed to respond. And Jalen Hurts took it under his own wing to win this game. Gets the quarterback draw touchdown that turns out to be the game-winning touchdown, and made a couple of big plays a little earlier to get them back in the game, including a touchdown pass to Quez Watkins. Meanwhile, it was a good damn thing they played the Indianapolis Colts, because the Colts squandered five situations where they could have taken control in this game, and it wound up biting him in the end. And we'll talk about all this flip and flop in the fourth quarter, back and forth. Guys, it's a win, and they did not get bludgeoned on the ground, but they had to survive here. So what does it all mean? Derrick?
Well, you know, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, and two plays define the outcome of this game. The Colts kicker missed the one field goal, which would have given them 19 points. And, of course, the Eagles get the big 39-yard penalty, which set up the game-winning score. You know, sometimes you have to rely on luck, Seth, a little bit more so than just overall talent. And, you know, we were talking about this up in the green room also. Each and every week we're starting to identify the teams are starting to figure out what the Philadelphia Eagles are trying to do offensively, which is kind of diffusing a lot of what they do with those explosive plays.
Well, the adjustment that the Eagles made in the second half, you know, to your point, what you're talking about is, you know, they were bringing Zach Pascal the last couple of weeks, and when they really put the Dallas Cowboys in conflict, specifically talking about Micah Parsons,
yeah,
they would go read option, and they'd bring Dallas Goedert across the formation. So now Micah Parsons had a choice. You either take Dallas Goedert or you take Jalen Hurts. You take Jalen Hurts, Jalen throws it to Dallas. You take Dallas, Jalen keeps the ball and runs with it. Well, Indianapolis had an adjustment for it. And, you know, early in the game, they stopped them on, I think they turned it over on downs. They stopped them on third down, and they stopped them on fourth down, the same type of play. Well, the remedy in the second half for the Philadelphia Eagles was to put the game on Jalen Hurts' leg, because he's the one guy that you can't account for, you know, on the defensive side of the ball when he decides to run the ball, you know. So it really was a smart decision, and it was a difference in the game, the difference between them winning and losing the game, the legs of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, let's look over a couple things that turned back and forth on this. Now, there was a sequence, which is the most important sequence of the game. Jonathan Taylor, churning for a first down, gets stripped. And the Eagles got that was a big swing. And what happens is that Hurts hits A.J., who also gets stripped. And at that point, the Colts really had a chance to put them away there. Right. They got the ball at the 34, and they didn't. And I'm just looking at the 5 advantages that they had in this game. First of all, they got only 6 points out of those advantages. They had a fumble that only resulted in 3 that they recovered. There was a 4th and 10 that the Eagles failed on when they decided not to try a 56-yard field goal indoors, and that led to a punt. The Colts punted it away. The missed field goal right after they got good field position. They had a 1st and goal in the fourth quarter. They only got 3 points out of that. And, of course, the disastrous pass interference penalty where Miles Sanders just gets tackled. Zaire Franklin just got beat and panicked and tackles the receiver, and that just really handed the Eagles a situation where they could win this game. Otherwise, we're looking at a loss.
Yeah, there's no question about it. But the bottom line is somehow, some way, they found a way to pull this thing out. And I agree with Seth. You know, the Colts did a really good job of taking away the Eagles' deep threats in the passing game. So finally in the second half, Shane Steichen, Nick Sirianni said, okay, if you're going to do that, then we've got to put it in our quarterback. Look at how many times Jalen Hurts went back and patted the ball, rolled outside, had nowhere to go with it, and then threw it out of bounds. They said, okay, you want to do that? Here's what we're going to do. So they had Jalen Hurts step up, take off. I mean, he ended up with 16 carries, 86 yards rushing. He's your leading rusher by necessity. And, you know, we talk week in and week out about this team having so many different ways they can beat you. And luckily, just in the nick of time, they figured out this is the way we have to attack a pretty good Colts defense. This is what we are going to have to use if we're going to have a measure of success trying to beat this team.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to say this, okay? Football is such a fickle game when it comes to wins and losses. You know, they were that close to coming back and winning that game last week. They were this close, you could say, maybe to losing the game this week. But this week they found a way to get done what they couldn't get done because of the turnovers last week. So I'm not going to beat them up. I'm not going to talk about, you know, how sloppy the game looked, you know, how much I actually question the play calling on the offensive side of the ball, where I'm going to tip my cap to Jonathan Gannon, because there were certain times today I should say, where he was aggressive. He actually brought some pressure and forced Matt Ryan's hands in some situations.
Let's talk a little bit about that, Seth, because everybody was worried all throughout the Delaware Valley, right here at this table, about their inability to stop the run, that something had to change. Now, they bring in Ninvell Joseph and Sue, and those guys saw a lot of snaps, and they were fairly effective. But what did they do to shackle? Jonathan Taylor came out like a maniac early on. Then they shut it down really almost completely. They couldn't run between the tackles at all. What were they doing to stop the run?
Listen, the Eagles cannot stop the run. They cannot stop the run in their four-man front. Okay, the linebackers are lost.
No question.
The linebackers are lost, and the defensive tackles aren't sure how to play the double teams. But every time they get in the five-man front and then they drop the guy in the box, now you got a 7 or 8 man box. So that means that there's a free hitter somewhere. Whether you're talking about 2 linebackers on the field with 5 down linemen, or whether you're talking about 1 linebacker and a safety in the box, you always have a free hitter. You know, and those guys they're attacking the line of scrimmage. Conversely, against the 4-man front, the linebackers don't look like they really know where they need to be in those circumstances. So you talked about Sue and you talked about Joseph, and everybody was wondering, how much are they going to play? And I talked to Derrick, Gunn, and Mark Farzetta about it in the pregame show. I'm like, listen, there's no reason for these guys not to come in here and play right now. They're fresh, okay? You don't have to be in shape. It's not like they're a linebacker or DB. They got to run all over the place. I said, if those guys got to run more than 10 yards, we got a problem anyway.
Right.
All they got to do is, come off the ball and stuff somebody at the line of scrimmage and help these linebackers get in the backfield and make some tackles. And that's exactly what they did. Now, put them in a cold tub, give them some rest next week, only give them 2 days of practice, and get them ready to do it all over again. You do not need to train these guys thinking you got to get them in some type of shape. They're in football shape. They have played a lot of football in their career. They know what to do, and this is nonsensical to think that those guys couldn't walk in week 10 and just play. They just showed you that they could.
You made it sound just now like a simple fix. They 5-man line, drop a guy down. They seem to be unable to figure that out against the run this year.
No, you know what the problem is? You know what the conflict with Jonathan Gannon is? He knows that he has to play the 5-man front in order to control the run. But he doesn't like the 5-man front because it leaves him one less guy on the back end.
Right.
So from a coverage standpoint, they're weaker. But against the run, they're extremely strong. So what he wants to do is he wants to ensure on 1st and 2nd down that he gets you in 3rd and long, so when he goes to 4-man line, he don't have to worry about you running the ball. See, that's where they got hurt last week. They just kept coming up in 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1. Well, the minute they put the 4-man line on the field, they just turn around, hand the ball off, convert the 3rd down. Yeah. You get a whole new set.
Derrick, the offense looked like it didn't have much continuity. They did, Miles Sanders, again, they really didn't utilize him consistently in the first half. He only had 13 carries for 47 yards in this game. Why did they look so discombobulated offensively?
I think it's because of the way Indianapolis played them. I mean, we forget Indianapolis is one of the top 5 defenses in the league, and they've been playing much of the season without their 2 best players, in Shaquille Griffin, who's now out for the season after having a 2nd back surgery in 5 months, and Kawhi Pay. And give kudos to Gus Bradley and John Fox on that side of the football in terms of how they schemed it. So, and we also talk about, Mike, how each and every week teams seem to be getting better and better at figuring out what the Eagles are trying to do offensively, which is forcing the Eagles to adjust, and it's taking them that much longer to adjust in a lot of situations. Prime example today, going into this game, I said, I want to see what they do with Stephon Gilmore, and sure enough, they had him on A.J. Brown for much of this afternoon, and that was a little bit bigger struggle. And we don't know how bad A.J. Brown's ankle was really bothering him going into this game as well. But when you have superior personnel like the Eagles, and of course they were minus Dallas Goedert, and that was huge, not having a Dallas Goedert, you still have enough weapons, a way to figure out a team that's in transition with a new coach, that's not expected to do a whole lot, but they're playing at home after coming off a big win on the road. And they played a tough game. You heard me say time and time again, I thought Indianapolis was spending too much time playing not to lose instead of continuously attacking this Eagles defense.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to be fair, the Colts were pretty good against the run coming into this game. They were second in the league, holding teams to 3.2 yards per carry, and they displayed that against the run. And their pass rush wasn't supposed to be great, and I thought Jalen had a lot of time to throw back there.
Yeah.
And but they finally, we're talking about this one. How can they get this offense going? You put it in the quarterback's hands at this point. You let him do what he does, and that's what they did in the fourth quarter.
Well, listen, he hasn't done a lot of that the last couple of weeks. I mean, he's really played the game from the pocket, and distributed the ball under the circumstances over the last 2 weeks. This was a game where, you got a defensive mind in John Fox. You got another defensive mind in Gus Bradley. Both of these guys have been in the NFL a long time, and both of these guys have been in situations, guys, where, they've been head coaches in the NFL. So they know what to do, okay? So it took the Eagles a little bit of time, but they finally realized that, hey, today has to be that day that we need Jalen to use his legs. Now, if he wasn't a quarterback that could run, the Eagles lose this game, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Because they had no answer for anything else. They had no answer for running the ball when they wanted to run it. To your point, he stood in the pocket, and nobody was open. I mean, I got to see the all-22 to believe it with my own eyes, but after they turned it over 4 times last week, you got to believe that was a point of emphasis, that he wasn't going to force anything that wasn't just right there wide open for him, okay? So it's one of those games where, you win by whatever means you can win by, but at the end of the day, they played complementary football. The offense did enough, and the defense put to rest after the first drive. After the first drive of the game, where Indianapolis took it, 10 plays, 75 yards, and ended with Jonathan Taylor punching it in for a touchdown. After that series, they went 3 plays, 5 plays, 5 plays, 5 plays, 4 plays, 8 plays, 11 plays, and I know I'm missing a few in there, but if you just listen at those numbers, that's telling you that something clicked, something changed after that first series, and the Eagles' defense became, a lot more complimentary in this win, than what we've seen the last 2 weeks, because everybody wondered out loud whether this team could get over the hump when you start to think about, all the teams that are coming up, and you going into Indy's house against the reigning, AFC Offensive Player of the Year and rushing champion from last year after he just shredded the Raiders last week for 147. Hey, listen, they answered the bell, man.
Yeah, with the new zip